Broncos have requested to interview DeMeco Ryans for their vacant head coaching job. What is your instant reaction to this news, Ryan?
I feel bad for DeMeco a little bit. I mean, that's a kind of a tough situation. So I don't know what was going on with the Russell Westbrook or Wilson, not Westbrook. I don't know what's going on with Westbrook either. But Russell Wilson, I don't know what's going on with him this year. It wasn't himself. So I'm not sure if this is an offensive coordinator thing or what the issue is. But my biggest thing for DeMeco is if he's going to take that Denver job, who's going to be his offensive coordinator? Are they going to be able to get Russell Wilson back on track? Because I think DeMeco is going to be a great head coach. I think he's a leader of men, and he'll do great in that regard. But when you hire a defensive head coach, the key is, who is your offensive coordinator? So that's going to be big. And maybe DeMeco has somebody in mind already, but that's going to be key because it could be disastrous if they don't, if he doesn't have that part figured out.
Look, I don't think he's going to get this job. But I understand why he might want it, and I think if you notice, like a lot of high-profile coaches are getting linked to this job, and it's like, why would Sean Payton even entertain this job or Jim Harbaugh? Well, they have new owners, and someone in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Broncos' new owners are, I think the technical term for it is stupid rich. And I think a coach might want a little piece of that action because they might be the kind of owners that just pay a stupid amount of money for a coach like, Carolina did with Matt Rule. So I can see why anyone would be interested in that job, even though you have to coach Russell Wilson. I just can't see the Broncos missing on Nathaniel Hackett, who had no experience, very little experience, and then turning around and giving it to another first-time head coach on the defensive side of the ball. Usually teams overcorrect. So if they hire a guy who's low on experience, they turn around and hire a guy who's high on experience. And that's not necessarily a good way to do business, but that's usually how it works in the NFL.
Yeah, I could see that being an issue for DeMeco getting that job in Denver. And again, I personally, I like DeMeco, but I've always preferred offensive head coaches because then the offense is consistent. DeMeco let's say DeMeco takes the job, gets a great offensive coordinator, they do really well. That guy might be a target for other teams to hire the following year. So then he's going to start all over. And so if I'm building a team, if I'm an owner or a GM, I want an offensive head coach. Even though I think DeMeco's great, awesome head coach, I think he will be as far as defensive-minded head coaches go. But again, I'd prefer an offensive-minded head coach if I'm building a franchise.
Look at Robert Saleh. I love Robert Saleh. He's completely as advertised. Great defensive coach, great motivator. They haven't scored a touchdown in like 3 years on the Jets.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, they've had injuries and, the quarterback, okay, well, do you believe in Mike LaFleur? I don't know. We'll see. Well, I mean, that's going to be – you could say the success of Robert Saleh depends on injuries in the quarterback position. It does to a degree, but it also depends on Mike LaFleur. So we'll see. Yeah.
A lot of turnover when you have a defensive head coach, it seems to me. Just because you're always replacing guys if they don't work out.
If you're lucky. If they're good.
Yeah. Even if
I mean, Robert Saleh isn't replacing Mike LaFleur anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. So that's the problem when you're a GM or an owner hiring a defensive head coach.
Just to go off topic for a second, but speaking of LaFleur's, Matt LaFleur, stock down.
Yes.
He is so vanilla, man. Like, I watched that game last. I was waiting to do my stream. I was watching on YouTube TV on my phone. Yeah. That was a must-win game for the Packers at home, and they played like they could give a shit.
Yeah.
What the hell was that?
Packers not making the playoffs is a big story. Big story. I mean, you got Aaron Rodgers, who's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks of all time, and didn't even make the playoffs.
They should fire Matt LaFleur.
And then you lose to the Lions. And shout out to Dan Campbell, man. I think he's done an amazing job in Detroit. So good for him. They didn't make the playoffs, but at least they have a winning season, and he was able to knock out the Packers. But
he was a good hire.
Packers are a mess. They didn't blow it up.
He was a good hire. He was a good hire. I thought they were crazy when they hired him, but he was pretty good. The only problem is they're going to sentimentally re-sign Jared Goff, who is Jimmy Garoppolo, and they're going to lock themselves into this team for a while, like 9-8, 8-9, 10-7, not really a contender. And if they just moved on and found their Brock Purdy that they could spend, because they're going to spend too much money on this, on Jared Goff. You could get that. What the Niners have just discovered is you could get this for $900,000. It's out there.
Would
You
the
know what I'm
Rams have
saying?
done better with Jared Goff this year?
Yeah, because he would have been healthy.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.